Welcome to day 3 of Innovate USA, the nation's first 3-day virtual conference for enrollment professionals, streaming live across 5 platforms. I'm Leonard Nappi-Napolitano, Capture's CEO, and joining me is Heather Muellers, Capture's VP of Enrollment Solutions, and we are today's MC. Good afternoon, Heather.
Hey, Len, how are you?
Good.
I am so pumped for today.
It is. I am pumped. Today's focus is excellence in enrollment management. And we're doing this with 2 panels of industry experts.
It's going to be
fun. I am excited, to kick off today's discussion with just a recap about the past 2 days. To begin with, we started talking off the value of creating formulas about return on investment, looking at your marketing spend and aligning that back to your key initiatives and seeing what's been successful, because we know every dollar is valuable. And here are just some of the great formulas that were shared. Or Laura Rudolph from Transylvania University. I really found so valuable when she was talking about how to best communicate with Gen X parents, what was critical to them, transparency and costs. I don't know what you took away from that, but that was one of the big things for me.
Sure. I love that Laura gave us a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, of their process, the iterations that they go through, the testing that they do to ensure that they're getting the right message out to their prospective students and families.
And what I also liked is even when she started talking about, we all talk about streaming video, making, the content engaging and powerful, the pros and cons of it. And
Absolutely.
Some of the lessons learned. A great presentation that we've made available for everyone, and really grateful for her contribution to the entire community.
Absolutely.
Or now, how do you identify the right student in this test optional world? Mm-hmm. Different ways to think about that predictive model as more and more institutions become test optional. In fact, most recently, the University of California system announcing that direction.
This is definitely one to watch.
And predictive modeling and aligning it with your marketing ROI spend. I really thought John provided a nice example of Gannon University, how they leveraged their predictive model to determine who's the right student to get the direct mail piece, yes. Knowing how expensive direct mail pieces are, and to have the greatest efficacy.
Absolutely. I think there's a ton of creative ways to be able to use predictive analytics today. And John just gave us a snapshot of a few. It was fantastic.
And one of the things I really thought was beneficial, and you heard this throughout every presentation, was incorporating behavioral benchmarks into your marketing strategy. Really thinking about your different populations, the segmentations, typical behaviors, whether it's at the graduate level, undergraduate level, or even parent level. Again, and you heard that reiterated not only in Laura's presentation, in Plexus's presentation, in Platform Q's presentation, and then even in Dr. Roy's presentation. So it really seemed to be, critical thing to identify and to implement.
Absolutely. I think as we continue virtual engagement, it will be critical to be able to respond quickly, iterate, and move. And so it'll be interesting to watch the dialogue as we continue forward.
And of course, I'm not talking about Family Feud. I'm actually talking about Dr. Roy's presentation, Survey Says. So many of us are always like, let's send a survey. And I thought she really gave not only good insight about when we think about our analysis and our 4 biases, but really being smart about when to send a survey and what to include and not to include in a survey.
Absolutely. I got to tell you, every time I listen to Dr. Roy speak, I feel like an empowered data scientist.
Right.
Awesome.
And I love, how often can you use scientific model in a cocktail conversation? Right? So that to me also excites me. But the importance of modeling, as we are trying to identify a variety of populations across a variety of programs, and what's so important about that empirical information. Mm-hmm. I'd be remiss not to talk about today's event. Our first panel, 4 enrollment executives representing vastly different institutions and missions, are all accomplished professionals and here today with us. And the panel's discussion will focus not only on the lessons learned in a post-pandemic environment, operational best practices, tactics that have worked surprisingly well, tips for counselor management and employee stress, their favorite hobby, and perhaps even a lip sync for your life will be included.
Really?
Yes, it's the first time ever that Lip Sync for Your Life has been included in a virtual conference. And our second panel also consists of industry experts, but they're actually going to be doing something slightly different. They're going to be sharing us insights about the mediums and techniques that are most impactful when communicating with prospective students and parents. Mm-hmm. Their findings are actually based on analyzing millions of pieces of creative artifacts and then determining, based upon those results, what are some tips and tricks that anyone can apply into their marketing and communications campaign?
That's fantastic. The millions of interventions that these folks have seen in working with our partners and people throughout the industry, not only tactics that work from a channel perspective, but knowing that they have worked with totally different institutions, right? Different parts of the country, different types of students that we're trying to communicate with. I think their insights are going to be really interesting.
I think so too. And I think it's also important for us to remind everyone listening out there, today's sessions are not product demos. They are industry discussions. So if that's something that you are expecting for today, I ask that you reach out to capture.buzz/contact us, and an individual can respond to that request. But today is an industry discussion, understanding best practices, not only from the perspective of enrollment executives, but then also creative executives who are there to execute a number of those marketing strategies. Outside of those additional panels, I'd be remiss not to talk about Future Forward. The conversation does not stop after the past 3 days. The conversation continues. And there's a site dedicated to this community at capture.buzz/future forward. Heather, I didn't know if you wanted to just, opine even further.
Sure. Len, I think that Innovate USA is just the beginning. Future Forward is the continued conversation and a way for us to stand next to the enrollment professionals who are doing the amazing work they do every day.
And lastly, as we talked about the past 3 days, I even talked even just a few minutes ago about tactics and takeaway. Today is about action. Today is fundamentally an action, and actions that we must continue and take away every day to be stewards for racial equality and social justice. Every one of us represent institutions that share that value and are beacons of opportunity. So join us in taking action at capture.buzz/donate. That's right, at Capture today, to represent our action, we are investing our dollars and time into 2 organizations, the Boys and Girls Club of America and the National Urban League. So join us in matching dollar for dollar today. And with that, I'd like to kick off today's panel and our first session.
Let's do it.
Welcome, 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 everyone.
Hey, all.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Nappy.
Hey,
hello.
everyone.
It's so good to see your faces.
We are super pumped because this is the first nationwide virtual conference for enrollment professionals. And our panel discussion, we should let the audience know, we did give our panelists some of the questions, but not all the questions. And the reason being is not only do we have some questions up our sleeves, but we will be taking questions from the audience. That's right, across 5 different platforms. So please send us your questions, post them, and we have a producer backstage who's going to try to get to all of them. With that, I want to kick it off. If each of you can give a brief description, not only of what makes your institution unique, especially that mission, because you each do represent different types of institutions, your role, and your favorite hobby outside of work. We'll begin.
Brad, why don't we start with you, Brad?
Okay, Brad
that's,
gets to go first.
Yeah, figuring out the order of things in these conferences is always an interesting game. So my name is Brad Camilleri. I work at Biola University. Biola is a faith-based university in Southern California. So the uniqueness of our mission is that we are expressly for students that personally possess a Christian faith, that are trying to figure out how to integrate their faith with their learning and their vocation. So that's really what we're about as an institution. I'm the director of marketing strategy and client services for the university at all program levels. And the hobby that I have that is keeping me sane during this time is taking care of my 2-year-old boy, Elliot, who is a joy and is the silver lining of this this time that, as an extrovert, has otherwise been a real challenge for me. But spending extra time with my boy has been a delight. So that's me.
Awesome. Leanne?
Hi, I'm Leanne Hughes. I'm the VP for Enrollment Management and Marketing at Illinois Wesleyan University. You can probably tell from my voice that I may have a little bit more in common with Brandon than I do others. I'm originally Tennessee born and moved here to Bloomington about 4 years ago to take the position here. Illinois Wesleyan University is a small private liberal arts university that really focuses on pre-professional and liberal arts and the marriage of those two. And we have the highest employment rate of any school, any private school in Illinois. All undergraduate. We offer no graduate degrees at this point in our time. So that's a very different thing for me, having been used to doing a lot of adult learning before I came here. I would say my hobby right now, because I've moved to Bloomington, Illinois, is that when the sun shines, I want to be in it. So I'm just so darn happy when the sun's shining. So I've been spending a lot of time reading and sitting outside until, the mosquitoes take me away. So that's what I'm up to lately.
That's fantastic. Anna.
Hi there. My name is Anna Miner. I'm Vice President for Admissions and Financial Aid at Colby Sawyer College in New London, New Hampshire. We're a small college of under 1,000 students in the Lakes region of New Hampshire, so we're surrounded by gorgeous lakes and mountains here. Our college is rooted in the liberal arts and sciences. We have 3 schools here. We have the School of Arts and Sciences, the School of Business and Social Sciences, and the School of Nursing and Health Science. We're probably very well known for our nursing program. We have the top nursing program in the state of New Hampshire, and we partner with Dartmouth Hitchcock Health on workforce development and helping them with some of their needs with students for both interns and full-time employment. So we have some wonderful opportunities here.
That's awesome. Now we can't have you skip the hobby. Yeah.
Oh, I was trying. I thought you inject that. So whenever I could spend time with family, I have 2 teenage girls, a husband, and a dog, 2 cats. But we're beach-loving people, so we spend a lot of time on the Maine coast, which we love. And during this pandemic, I have discovered that I am pretty good DIYer. Oh. And doing a lot of work outdoors. My husband and I, with our kids, rebuilt a leach field last weekend. That's right.
Oh my gosh.
I know more about septic systems today. Just saying.
What?
Who knew?
Who knew?
No time like the present to learn something new.
That's right. It's such an important function as well. But back to enrollment. Brandon.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Johnson. I serve Tennessee Tech University as Vice President for Enrollment Management and Career Placement. So Tennessee Tech is in Cookeville, Tennessee, in Middle Tennessee. Leanne, you're going to notice that I actually don't sound like I'm from Tennessee because I was born and raised in Northwest Iowa. And so I'm a Midwesterner. Have moved my family to Cookeville about 2 years ago to join Tennessee Tech. Tech is a regional public university. We're an R2, so we have a fairly active research agenda. 9,000 undergraduates, 1,000 graduate students. Obviously, with our name Tech, middle name Tech, we are strong in the STEM and engineering, but we are also a comprehensive university. We are unique in that as a regional institution, we serve what's called the Upper Cumberland, which is a very rural area of Middle Tennessee or in Tennessee. And so we serve Metro, Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga, but we also have a surrounding area that's extremely rural and impoverished in a lot of ways. So it's a unique setting. It's good to be with everybody. Oh, and my hobby, probably it's fairly general, but anything and everything outdoors, from hiking and walking, just to yard work, anything to not be sitting behind this desk, and sitting. Really, just I don't enjoy sitting.
Well, I'm actually going to kick it off. Thank you to all of our panelists. And I'm actually going to kick it off with a really powerful question. You know, many of you probably know that today, Artie the Artichoke turned 47. That's right. Scottsdale Community College's mascot. And in 1972, when he was elected, what other candidates did he beat out? The winner of this question will receive a donation in their name to the National Urban League. Is it A, Tiger the Tiger Nut, B, Tommy the Tomatillo, C, Andy the Apollo Broccoli, or D, Rachel the Rutabaga?
Any guesses?
Any guesses?
I'll
I'm
venture a
going to
guess.
go
Why not?
A.
Okay, go ahead, Leanne.
Leanne's got
Oh,
A.
sorry.
Okay.
Brad?
I'm gonna go with the tomatillo.
Okay. Anna? Brandon?
I'm going with the rutabaga.
Okay, got one for Rutabaga and Brandon?
D.
B. The actual answer is the Rutabaga. It was a tough competition, but now let's get to the first question. And because the post-pandemic environment is about innovation, it's about challenging ourselves, right? Challenging things that we thought were normal. And want to open it up to the person that feels most comfortable sharing their response. But can you share with us, all of a sudden the pandemic hits, everyone's scrambling, you're working from home, employees are going out, to a number of different places. You are in reaction mode. Can you share something that you were hesitant about initially changing or implementing, but as you look back, you're glad you did because it had a positive impact on not only your strategy, whether it was your office, whatever that was, and how you measured the success? Because I know a lot of people over the past 3 days have shared with us, they want to do something new, but there's hesitation. And I think hearing from you all some of those experiences is valuable. What was that thing as you look back?
I'm happy to go.
Thank you, Anna.
Going live is a terrifying thing for higher ed, I think. And so being challenged with getting out there, leveraging technology, we're so used to being one-to-one and face-to-face that this concept of being out there and, Zooming and how quickly we became proficient was one thing. We had an admitted student day and we were all terrified of going live and we recorded pretty much everything. And now we're like, oh, I'll do another panel. Sure. We've become much more comfortable in our own skin. I think that we're leveraging technology in meaningful ways. I do not see this movement changing regardless of where we go. I think we always need to be present and live. I think if anything, we've created fewer barriers to students visiting our campuses. I think that's important. I think we've always had that, students visit the campuses that they've narrowed down to that they can afford. And, we want to create more access. Well, we've just created more access to our campuses and more access to education. We just needed to get over our discomfort with being live and putting ourselves out there. So for us, that was a big move. I mean, we're live all the time. A live weekly session. Yeah, it's great.
How many other people are using another virtual platform to go live more frequently in the panel? If you can raise your hand. To the other panelists, is there a nuance that you would recommend that you've noticed or been able to measure, saying, we know that certain programs, they prefer these types of students, prefer morning, or these programs afternoon. Any nuance that you can share that you found to be impactful when creating those virtual environments?
I'll just share something that I've experienced. When this pandemic happened, I think one of the things that was overwhelming is that everybody started to measure themselves based on what other people were doing. And you could find these opportunities and these strategies. I mean, from virtual tours to one-on-one sessions to it was just a rush of information. And it takes a moment where you have to step back and just be authentic. You just have to say, okay, well, what is Tennessee Tech? What do we need to do? You know, we can't do everything all the time like every other school. And so that moment in time when you're overwhelmed, and then you become at peace with the fact that you just need to do what you can do and do it the way you would do it and just be authentic, because that message will be heard from the students, right? The way we recruit is not the same as the other schools in Tennessee and in the schools. And so it's important when students experience us, it's just not the same thing as they had at other places, and it doesn't look the same, it doesn't feel the same, and that's okay. It's okay to be uniquely us, and as long as it is aligning with sort of your characteristics of your institution. And so it took a while to get comfortable with that, because it seemed like every week I was getting a message to say, well, this school did this school did this school did this,
Right.
and we just couldn't keep up, and we weren't even getting done what we needed to get done. So another school could say, hey, look what Tennessee Tech just did. And so I think that moment of just that being authentic and being real with yourself, and then communicating that to your prospective students and families.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
like
Brandon,
to. Oh, go ahead,
Brad,
Leanne.
we keep doing this. You go.
We do.
You go.
All right, I can go. So I want to comment on Brandon's statement about authenticity. I think that's truly important in this moment, especially. But it's always important for us as marketers and enrollment management professionals to make sure that the content that we are producing and the communication that we are having with prospective students and families is us authentically. Nabi, to your question about something that we did that I was nervous about a little bit, but ultimately was happy about. We radically changed our admitted student event from being a one-day sort of on-campus sort of like close the deal event when we had to go sort of virtual with it. We changed the nature of it pretty dramatically. We made it an entire week long, and instead of being one sort of concentrated event with a bunch of informational sessions, one of the people that reports under me, who actually knows and understands sort of the social media world of teenagers a lot better than I do, suggested that we really blow it up and we create an entire week of lots of different types of content, much of which was not actually like directly germane to enrollment and the admissions process and to presenting the unique selling proposition of the school. And I was sort of like hesitant about doing that sort of thing, but ultimately gave the go ahead because I really do trust her expertise. And man, it was just the greatest thing. So all week long, I think we had 22 different sessions. And while some of them were informational and like Q&A sessions around financial aid, one of them was like painting with Brandon, and one of them was like another one of our current students, like sort of leading whoever wanted to join him through a lot of it was just authentic communication with people. And what we found was there was such a hunger for real connection to be made. We had 3 times the amount of students that engaged in our week-long admitted student week experience than we have ever had come and engage with us at our one-day admitted student day. We went from a 300-person event to a 900-person event by sort of radically changing it. And I think that this is actually going to impact how we do this moving forward. And even when we can re-engage in person, there are things that we're learning about the benefits of virtual engagement that are going to persist. And that's one of the things that we're going to carry forward somehow.
Hey, Brad, before we go to Leanne's response, what was the most attended event outside of the ones that are very germane to the institution, like financial aid or sign up for classes? What was the one where you're like, I can't believe this many people are attending it. Wow, this is cool.
I don't know if this one was the most attended one, but I know that the painting one was actually like quite significantly attended, which again was like a surprise to me. But yeah, it was just something that was unique, and I think the students really got a chance to connect. And some of the students that we were using on our end were people that had some connection with prospective students, because they are the current students that we use for our own sort of social media presence. So over the course of the year, these students sort of build a certain awareness and sort of personality of their own through our various platforms. So that one I know had a surprisingly significant connection, even if it may or may not have been the most attended one, but it was the one that surprised me the most.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Leanne.
Great comments, you guys. Just going back to sort of what Brandon was starting with, I think for us beginning this, it was just being overwhelmed at what everyone was doing and realizing that in some ways we had been less aggressive on our virtual tour on our webpage because really visiting our campus, it's that balance that you have to have between students relying on the virtual tour and not actually making the personal visit that you're trying to navigate through. So we had to mobilize quickly in that regard. But I would say one thing for us that was really powerful is we began in the first couple weeks just really using that time as an opportunity and to talk to the students. We started with student to student contact, and we didn't even talk about Illinois Wesleyan. We just called and said, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. We're so sorry about, whatever we knew about them, that you don't get to go to your soccer championship or you don't get to go to your prom and, all of those sorts of things. And then as we moved in, for us, that was an opportunity to demonstrate the personal touch that we try to demonstrate all the way through the 4 years at Illinois Wesleyan. But then as we sort of started doing the other things, we did a lot of what you did, Brad, with our visit day, only we just gave a link to only the admitted students, and we had it available on the website. And then we did what we call Titan Tuesdays, which are now moved over to Student Affairs, and they're picking those up. And we did a handoff between us and Student Affairs. That was sort of a party celebration. We mailed everyone biodegradable confetti. And so they had a moment, and we shot off those smoke gun things that I think are really supposed to be for gender reveal parties, but they make them in green, so go figure. And that was, for me, one of the things I was, I guess, maybe the most nervous about, if people would get into that. But what we found, especially if we involved parents, when it was in those moments of celebrations, you could just see the connection between the student and the parent and us as an institution in a really powerful way. And so that, for me, was one of the surprising opportunities. And of course, that did dictate the timing. Nappy, going back to your question, trying to schedule things for parents that are at a time, knowing they're probably working at home, but even if so, doing some things after 5 p.m. and making sure they're a part of that. So that was really fun. And we had students take their confetti and create these art pieces with them and just do some really cool stuff that was sort of an organic afterthought that never occurred to us. So like you said, there's some real opportunities in, how people have responded.
That's awesome. Now, real quick before we move on to the next, I see 2 questions that have been posed out there.
Yep.
A very quick one. Brad, Jamie would like to know what was painted during that session?
Oh man, you got me. I'm not sure what it was that was being painted, so I don't want to. Oh, what did I paint? Yeah, no, I did not participate. You wouldn't want to see me try to do art. I don't remember what the thing was that was painted, but the whole point of it was not that. Obviously, it was just like the social connection that people were starving for. Sorry, I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that at a different session. The next question that I see, and this is a really interesting one to me as well to hear all of your perspectives on. Ashley wanted to know, how do you foresee fall travel scenarios for your counselors, and how will student outreach evolve if travel is limited? Brandon, what do you think?
Well, I think the silence is probably the answer in that one.
Yeah. That's exciting.
A lot of unknowns. Yeah, a lot of unknowns. This is what we sort of have to keep in mind is even though so much has changed, so much has stayed the same. This pursuit of students and helping them gain access, this is still the same game we've been playing for years. We just have to pivot and move. And so we, at this point, we're hopeful to get into schools. We're hopeful that some of this comes back to what we're sort of used to, but a lot of it won't. And we will keep doing what we have been doing in terms of the virtual engagement and really ramping up and improving some of the stuff we've done. But I believe what we'll see is both and. We will be doing some of the traditional items, and then we will also be doing some of the non-traditional, sort of the new way of recruitment. So it'll be interesting to manage that. I think that's, from my perspective, one thing that we're gonna have to pay attention to is burnout and overwhelming counselors, as they're going to be expected to be perhaps at a high school visit and then a virtual visit 2 hours later. And what does that look like, and how do we give them the equipment? So a lot of unknowns. We are unique, and we're actually having our orientation on campus this summer. And so that was, in Tennessee, we're one of the few, and that's been interesting to try to figure out how do we even get students on campus? How do we even get back to that sort of level of comfort? But at the end of the day, we just got to find ways to engage students, and there's a lot of complexities that we've yet to solve, but we'll get there. And I'm confident, as long as we just keep focused on the student, we're going to figure it out.
Fantastic. Anyone else?
I have a question that I did not share. So my question is this: we talked about the traditional age student, but I think all of you on your campuses have a post-traditional student population, and they do vary based upon programs. What was your pivot like for that population? And share with me, where did it differ, or what were some of the things that you employed, in order to address that population specifically, whether it was at the graduate level or a post-traditional population at the undergraduate level?
Most of our students that are professional learners tend to be folks on different schedules. Many of our programs, such as our graduate programs or our online programs, are really geared toward working professionals. And so there is a lot of one-to-one contact and a lot of off-hours correspondence and back and forth. So, so we definitely expect our admissions counselors to do a lot of one-to-one outreach to work with those folks at a time that really works for them.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Brandon or Leanne, Brad, did you notice anything different with your professional populations?
I don't know different, but one of the things that we have spent time discussing on the leadership team, and this steps outside of admissions a little bit, but we can no longer expect students to come to our offices for any reason, right? And so if you think about, as they prepare for submitting anything through the process that requires them to step foot on this campus, we have been exposed. And so we have really been rethinking, and there's a recruitment app, and there's sort of, once they've been admitted, there's these systems that they have to go through. And that now is a standalone and has to be rethought in terms of, it has to be systematic, it has to be easy. And so that's one of the things that I think we got caught on a little bit, that we have these documents that you have to print off and submit, and well, when you have a high school counselor sitting next to you, you can't do that. And so we had to automate and think about all these, any and every document that's out there, anything that we need submitted, is it student focused and friendly? And we found some that weren't, and we're continuing to move those that they are.
For us at Biola, our post-traditional or professional programs were already fully online. So in many ways, they suddenly became the programs that were most prepared and were the model for how to pivot our other programs too. So they went from being sort of seeing themselves sometimes as like on the periphery of the university to being the ones that everyone was looking to say, well, how do you navigate this sort of support process well in a fully online setting? Like, what type of student support are you guys offering for your students that never ever come on campus? Because now all of our students are potentially never coming on campus, and how do we do that? So for us, our professional programs were actually the model in many ways for how to not only transfer curriculum, but to transfer student support to students. And again, I think that what we discovered, unsurprisingly, is that some of the services that we were offering to our professional, students were actually ones that our quote unquote traditional students also found valuable. So I think that coming out of this, even as the campuses reopen and hopefully stay healthy and are able to do so, we're going to be bringing forward some of the things that we have learned that previously we sort of placed in just the fully online mode. We're going to be bringing some of those services forward in a more robust way, realizing that students want the flexibility and they appreciate the ability to engage remotely at times and in ways that meet their needs.
Len, we have just a few more minutes. Oh my gosh, it's gone so fast.
I have
You
another
have another question.
I do, because we forget about our unsung heroes, our counselors and staff. So many listeners want to know, what recommendations do you have for keeping your staff motivated, or what changes did you make with your staff to keep them motivated? Because as I started off, all of a sudden, boom, there's a lot of unknown, even in their home lives, for our staff. So what are some things that, some adjustments that you made that you found to work surprisingly well in order to keep them motivated, connected, with not only their mission, but just, what their job is, because they're so critical to the success of the institution?
I've got something.
Oh, go ahead.
Anna, I can tell you do too, Anna. You go ahead first. I'll jump in after you.
Oh, you're too kind, Brad. So we had a lot of work ahead of us because we went remote so quickly. And so there were a number of fast projects that we needed to get people working on. So creating cross-collaborative teams was really important for us, and giving people the opportunity to meet, to regularly work together on something, to not just be, I'm home, I'm isolated, I'm reading files, I'm getting decisions out, I'm doing Zooms. And so putting them on meaningful projects that contributed to our success in enrollment. We use Microsoft Teams, so we were, chatting a lot. I would send exciting updates because we extended our enrollment deadline to June 1. So kind of, Monday morning, how do we do over the weekend? And yay. Yesterday, we had a virtual cocktail party celebrating our success this year. There may or may not have been a margarita involved. So we really try to find these moments. I would try to send people regular little tidbits. Just noticed you did this, saw a really nice email come through, just kind of like, I'm still here, and just trying to keep tabs on folks to keep them excited. And giving them the opportunity to lead some fun projects was really great for us. We have a weekly live series, and different folks have been involved in the production of that live series. So that's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Brad?
The thing that I would mention here is actually applicable in any moment. It's not a COVID specific or a remote specific situation. But in terms of personnel management, when you lead a team, your people want two primary things from their boss. They want to be recognized, and they want to be appreciated. So the recognition, they want the work that they do to be specifically seen and called out. And different people want that in different ways. So you, as a leader of a team, you actually have to sort of individually understand how each of your people want their work recognized. Not everyone wants to be called out live in a big Zoom meeting in front of the whole division. Some people just want you to reach out and say, hey, like, Sarah, I see this thing that you did. It was really above and beyond. Like, thank you so much. So they want their work seen. But the appreciation part is where I think we miss this a lot. People want to be appreciated for what they bring to the work, right? So it's good to be able to say, hey, I see you did this thing, but you also need to be able to see, and you did it this particular way because of the gifts that you have. So Sarah, like, if someone else had done this, they would have done it differently, but you brought this particular thing to it. And I think when we as team leaders are able to appreciate and recognize our people, that goes a long way to creating motivation and morale. And that's true in any situation.
Sure. Leanne, I saw you come off mute.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, you know me, Brad. I think that's so true. And in this environment, making those recognitions, you don't walk down the hall and pop your head in someone's office and say it. So it really does require a really conscious effort to do those sorts of things. And we've tried that as well as much as we can. We've had, if you know me, we've definitely had some cocktail hours. To celebrate, to commiserate, to whatever's going on. Our birthday celebrations moved to that, and and occasionally we would just have a meeting where we just said we're not going to talk business. We did that last week about the George Floyd and the Black Lives Matters movement, and just talked and asked how people were feeling, and just used that time to really be together as a group. And then the other thing that I would add that I think has been interesting, and I think it's worked in a lot of ways. Our retreat is typically in the fall, and so we're still planning that. But we also knew that in the middle of this, there would not be the same level. We went back to fall planning. We're just now getting some of the information where usually we would have been doing that earlier. So we were fortunate enough to have subscriptions to, it used to be lynda.com. I think it's something else now, the LinkedIn. And so everyone has a password to that. And so we've just told them, take a couple hours every week, mark your calendar off and do something that you want to learn about. Something that is applicable to your job, or doesn't even have to be applicable to your job, but just a professional development opportunity to spend some time thinking about something else rather than, as Anna said, just going through Slate and reviewing applications. So I think my team would say that's been a really nice benefit to be able to do that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I cannot believe that our time has already elapsed. I could talk all day with you guys and listen to the experiences that you're having. Len, do you want to say any closing thoughts?
I just want to thank you for making yourself available to the entire community. It means a lot. All of our days are busy. All of us, your time is valuable, and to make yourself available to the hundreds of people listening in today, thank you. Thank you on behalf of the Capture family and the listeners today. We appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
Absolutely. So as we're wrapping here, Len, bye, Brandon, we have a giveaway to do, right?
That's right. And so I'll let you kick it off.
First, thanks again, right, to our enrollment experts for coming in and sharing some of their experiences in a very candid way, right? I just really appreciate that. So let's do the thing. Let's do the next drawing. So we are giving away a $50 Grubhub gift card, and in turn, we'll do a matching donation to the Boys and Girls Club of America and the Urban League in an effort of this. So let's drum roll it out.
Drum roll, please.
Who is our winner? Katie L. from New York. Congratulations. We will be getting you a $50 gift card to Grubhub and an in-kind donation to the Boys and Girls Club of American Urban League. Katie will be in touch after the conference to be able to connect with you on the logistics of getting that prize. For those of you who have not registered yet, once again, hop on over to capture.buzz/Innovate USA. The registration gets two things for you. One, you get registered to be dropped in for the drawing for these prizes, which we have two more today. And it also allows you to get great updates about this event, the recordings after the conference has ended, and updates about future ways in which you can connect with one another. So, Len, I cannot wait to bring this next group to our audience.
That's right. This is our next panel of experts. And so led by Jamie Gleason and Jack Collette will be leading the panel of creative thinking, best practices for higher education and marketing design. Jack and Jamie, over to you.
Thanks, Nappy. And thank you, Heather. That was an incredible session. Like that last session, so much fun to listen to. I love all those people. So that made it like super, super fun. So thanks for having us. I think, Jack, you and I are very excited about this, right?
Jamie, I am so excited, and I will tell you why. First of all, the struggle has been real for me because Heather, Nappy, Jamie, you guys have been participating in this since Tuesday. I have been with my fellow innovators, just watching and listening and learning. So I am super psyched to finally be with you all. So thanks for having me.
You're chomping at the bit, baby. This is, I was trying to think of a good analogy because, like these events they can be tiring, but I think all of us have this like pent up, like we've been in isolation for too long. So like this, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's like just an opportunity to put on a shirt like this and not have a meeting in my pajamas or, wear shoes or something like that. I feel like that's a big deal. But on top of that, to be able to hear the commentary, the comments, like the practices, the innovation, I mean, it's been a real joy. I mean, to be just frank, it's been a real joy for me.
Yeah, and that's been another thing, Jamie. I'm happy to be with you through this platform and this venue because as many folks who are joining us know, you and I are co-hosts of Capture's podcast, The Buzz. The podcast for higher ed. You can access it wherever you access your podcast.
There's a lot of episodes to listen to, so maybe you want to binge listen if that's a thing. Is that a thing? Binge listening?
It is now.
Totally a thing.
It is now. It wasn't already.
See, our subject matter experts are saying yes, it's a thing. So it is a thing.
I have to trust.
Right, but people can usually just listen to us. But now I'm glad they'll see the face of Farmer Gleason. So listen, we've got a lot to share. So I say we go ahead and dive in. I just want to tee some things up here.
Sure. And
let folks know what it is that we're talking about. So Jamie, you know this because you are director of undergraduate initiatives for Capture. I'm director of graduate initiatives for Capture. And typically we are the subject matter experts for those particular areas, right? So we get to do the fun webinars and get to do things like this. But today, we don't really have to do that much.
No,
because we are joined by 3 other Capture subject matter experts, but these are our subject matter experts that are our creative thinking subject matter experts. So these are the folks who, from design, from communications, from content, are creating all those wonderful pieces and campaigns that provide success for our partners. So Sarah Eckert, Laura Hagen, Hannah Ash, welcome.
Thanks.
I think we should do a few minutes just to kind of give a little background. No one needs to know more about me and my do-it-yourself hobbies and things like that. But I think just understanding a little bit more, the part that's kind of funny about this, right, Jack, is that I think it's very tempting, for our partners, for those who, maybe see and listen to us often or see, their sales representative or things like that. Like there is a massive, a massive people that are behind the scenes that are all subject matter experts in what they do, whether it's software development, communications writing, like there's so much going on behind the scenes. And really, we just kind of stand out front while they do the heavy lifting in the background. So I'm excited about the opportunity to have these folks here, even though I know that they like to stay in the background. This is going to be great for everyone to see and hear what they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, so let's turn it over to them.
Yeah, let's turn it over. And why don't we start with you, Sarah, and tell us a little bit about who you are, kind of what you do on the day-to-day behind the scenes at Capture, and what you're maybe a little bit about your tenure in your field.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Sarah Eckert, the Director of Creative Operations, and I lead the design team at Capture. I've been with Capture for 7 years, actually 7 years last month, and in higher ed for coming up on 11 years now.
All right. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. I'm Laura Hagen. I am a senior communications specialist. I've been with Capture actually just right about 5 years this month. Been mostly working in the comm department, so doing a lot of editing, working with all our partners, and I do a lot with our digital advertising as well.
Cool. Thank you, Laura. Sorry, I'm having some screen failure issues here.
All right, I'll
That's
go
okay.
ahead and go. I'm Hannah Ash. I am a communication specialist. I have a similar role to Laura, and I've been at Capture for about a year and a half. Before coming to Capture, I worked in enrollment in higher ed for about 3.5 years. So I was an enrollment manager as well as an enrollment counselor for some time. So I did that for about 3.5 years.
Excellent. All right. Well, this is fun, Jack. I'm glad to see you back. I just for the listenership out there, we're having a little bit of a thunderstorm here in the Philadelphia area right now, so this might be an interesting little segment.
We are. That was a bit of a power flicker for me. So fingers crossed.
Oh no.
Keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
That's right.
Keep us on our toes.
That's right. Well, Jack, I don't know about you, but I know that we have a few things to go through. Let's frame up like the background of this dialogue. So, we all know, and we're in a real season of innovation, right? This is happening in real times, and I talked about this on Wednesday or on Tuesday during our opening session. But in many ways, Innovate USA is a response to what happened to the pandemic, right? We had been having across the United States, we actually had a schedule of Innovate events on the calendar. We got 2 of them in, and the Philadelphia event was the very kind of literally right at the last week, we were able to get that in prior to everything being shut down. But during the Louisville event, we had this fun thing going on, right? We kind of did a game show-esque time where we did some critique. We talked to some partners. And this session that we're hoping to have today is going to be quasi like that, right? We're going to be talking through some of the best practices that we've seen because, we've done a lot of stuff. Heather just mentioned a minute ago that we've done literally millions of interventions, whether it's through the 429 million page views that we have overseen with our partners, whether it's through the 555 million emails that we've sent since 2015. That's not a fake number. There have been a lot of things that have happened, and that data set, because we love to measure things, is incredibly powerful. We get to see, hey, what works, what's less effective, when is this more effective, and today's session is really about that.
It is. The only difference is we don't have cocktails this time. I have coffee.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
It's not the same, and I'll give you that, Laura. You are correct. So why don't we start off, Jack? You want to tee this one up for us, or should I?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Look, we have 4, I think, best practices to share with you today, and we're going to start off here with the idea of email senders. So what do we mean by email senders? Well, when you send an email, right, it has to come from someone, and when it comes from that person, it displays in a certain way, either on your personal display device, or in your email account, right? You get to see exactly who it's from and maybe a little descriptive text. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about email senders.
And why are, like you mentioned, email senders are important, but why are they so important? Does someone from the operations team want to talk about why this is so important?
Yeah, I'll take that one. We actually did last year, we did a few different focus groups with some young people, some different ages throughout high school and those who had just started college. And we talked to them and we were like, what do you guys want to see? What works for you? Can you tell when it's kind of a mass email, that kind of thing? And what we saw kind of ran the gamut. We saw that some people prefer the more personal approach. Some people want to know it's just from the school and they'll go further if they need to. So in addition to all the testing we've done, it was helpful to have all the kids come in and be able to give us some real life examples and use that kind of going forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the other things that I think we talk about a lot is, we talk about subject lines in email, but also, when we think about it, when I interact on my phone or on my computer with email, it's a pretty little bit of real estate, but that makes a big difference. So knowing who it's from makes a big difference. So here's the trivia question. And for those of you who are out there in the listening audience, what I would encourage you to do is ping us on chat. If you want to take a guess at what you think is right, keep a tally on your notebook or whatever is going on, let us know like what you think, and then we will give you the answer. So question number 1 is, got to get the right screen here. What email sender is Most appropriate, best, perform the best. Let's just say maybe on the inquiry level, which one performed the best do you think? We'll give you a couple minutes to ruminate on the answer.
Yeah, so either A, B, or C here. Use the live chat and let us know. Jamie, this is a good point, a good moment, I think, to say, listen, we have done all of these campaigns, and we have our data that shows on aggregate what is the best practice here. But note that every institution is different. There are certain circumstances at an institution that will be very specific and might produce a different result. So always take a look at your own A/B testing and measure your own performance.
That's right. So should we get a drum roll, or we should just roll right into the answer? I think we should probably just roll right into the answer, right? They've waited long enough, folks. Yeah. And the answer is, as soon as my computer changes, the winner is, oh, sorry, I missed one more slide in there. This is fun. Here we go. Institution's name. So who wants to give us an explanation on this one?
Yeah, I'll take that. As you can see, we kind of did an example slide to kind of show you what it might show up like in some of these students' inbox. And as we said before, inquiry level, it depends. It's a little bit different than when you're further along in the pipeline. So for example, this is my first time hearing from your school. I'm going to want to have it from the school directly, because I may not know who Laura Hagen is, which you totally should. But you may not know who that person is, so it's a little bit more likely to be put into spam or dismissed by the student because they don't really recognize that name, whereas they recognize the college name above anything else. So that's something, like I said, we've done a lot of testing on, done a lot of back and forth on, and we've seen that for the most part, institution's name works the best, but as they get kind of further along and you do some of our triggered emails through our Engage product that's based more on behavioral, then those do a lot better when they're coming from a specific person, because then that student can get to know the person they'll be interacting with when they come on campus, or who they can ask more questions to, rather than just a general office number.
Right. And I would also add, later on in the process, once they've already worked with an admissions counselor, then having the sender be that admissions counselor is fantastic, because they already have a little bit of a rapport with them. And kind of along with that, if your institution is a little bit more quirky in some ways, and you have a specific brand voice that you want to stick with, and you want the center to be your future home or something more creative like that, then absolutely you should do that to just stay true to your brand's voice.
Yeah. What I loved is seeing that, there's a variety of answers that came in from the listening audience. And I think that speaks to the fact that what you said, Laura, is that at different times through the cycle, there are varying levels of importance that different people play and different roles that people play. Here's the truth, though, and hopefully we all acknowledge this, even though we hear trends about email not being as big of a piece of the puzzle as it used to be. We have studies that show that email makes, it has an incredibly powerful brand, the ability to communicate a brand and speak generally to a lot of audiences. So that's not necessarily an A/B test that we get into today, but I think we have a success story written about it on our website. So I'd encourage you to go take a look at that if you're wondering about the value of email. All right. Thank you for any other thoughts on email sender? No. Oh, good. Goodness. Oh, boy. Here we go. I can't tell. I think what's happening is my keyboard is kind of taking a long time to catch up, and then I'm going too fast, too far. So I think that I'm a few slides ahead right now, and I'm really sorry for for what I'm doing here to all the people who are watching. So,
Fast and furious.
Is that where I'm
on live television?
I know.
Right? We are live, right? So this is something that I think is important to give some context to. So what you're seeing here on your screen is really our second best practice. So for this, we're referring to popovers. So what is a popover? Jamie, you want to take that?
I would love to take that. So for those, and let me just give a caveat here to those who are out there listening and thinking, oh man, I hope that all these best practices, what we wanted to do today was talk about things that you can take nuggets that you can take away from our experience and tests and plug them into your system, whether you're a Capture partner or not. Because again, our goal as a company is to be innovative and help change the industry and make best use of resources and make most impactful use of resources. So this doesn't necessarily, there's some crossover applicability that we're going to get to, but a popover as we're talking about it right now, and you can see a couple of visual demonstrations here on mobile, but our Engage tool carries with it a number of different types of dynamic content. So things that are on your.edu page, if a visitor's on your.edu page and they are looking for a particular something, we have the ability, based on their status, based on where they're looking from, like all these different things, we can actually put different pieces of content in front of them in order to move them along in the funnel. So that's obviously our goal as a company, is to help you get your students in. So we use popovers as a tool to do that. So the question really is which one do we think performed the best? And the options are video popovers or image only popovers. And we will give a few seconds here for those who are out there in the listening audience to give us their answer before I attempt to move to the next slide, hopefully successfully this time. I can see my own cursor, so that's a good sign, right? All right. And yes, thank you for the hope. And the winner is image only. There we go. Hopefully there's some people out there who said, oh, look at this. Here we go. Thanks for interacting. And we're going to talk through a little bit about why image only popovers seem to be the best. So who wants to handle that?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So this is actually an interesting thing that we found. We had initially assumed that video popovers would perform better because they're much more interactive. There's rich media. They're much more interesting. So, you know, what we found though is that videos ended up being a little bit more of a distraction than actually helping with a click-through rate. You know, in a lot of cases, we found that, you know, they would maybe watch the video and then decide that they had all the information that they needed, and then they would move on without actually clicking through.
Sure.
So,
sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, we had actually a question come in from one of the viewers that asked about video popovers. So do video popovers autoplay, or do you have to click on the icon in order to start that process?
Right. So the videos are actually embedded within these popovers. So they're HTML-based popovers. So while the video doesn't automatically start playing when the popover is served to you, the video is just embedded right there, so you don't have to leave the page to actually watch the video.
So when it does pop up, though, you just click it one time.
You just click play, and it just plays right there where it is. So you don't have to actually leave the EDU site. But the interesting thing is, you know, a lot of times they would watch that video, get all their information, they would X out, and then wander along and look at different pages on the website, but we weren't really capturing that click-through rate.
Sure.
And the biggest issue there is we lose that engagement. We can't really track that engagement nearly as well.
Sure.
So all of that being said, it doesn't mean that the overall engagement was low, just that we can't really track that.
Sure.
So, you know, I would say if you're looking for a click-through, then the image-only popovers are really the best option.
Sure.
But just like any other type of marketing that you're doing, it really depends on what your goal is. If you are really wanting just to give someone some information, or in this post-pandemic world, do something more like a virtual tour or a related video, and you're not as concerned with people clicking through to a specific spot on your website, video popovers or any other type of marketing automation that uses that rich media, it's still the way to go.
Yeah, and I think
go ahead.
Go ahead, Laura. Sorry.
I was going to say everybody takes in information a little bit differently, so this isn't necessarily a be-all end-all for everyone or everything, but for some people, a video will work a little better than scrolling through all that text, and they don't want to take the time to kind of read that. So I think just knowing your own brand and knowing what works well for you all, and if you have some great videos to show, then we definitely want to show those. But yeah, we have seen a lot more success just in the things we've done because we do measure the click-through rate.
Right. Yeah. And there is something to be said for adding that interactive element, which I think We should always be trying that's possible, but again, it comes down to like what your goal is. So that's the sort of running theme with these best practices is it definitely depends on your situation and what your goal for the campaign is.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's funny. So as someone who has helped put some of these campaigns together, one of the things that I think is interesting is that perhaps, and this is just a complete, like, I'm just throwing this out there. This is a spitball idea, but maybe when there's not the need for as clear of a call to action, the video popover really works well. So like, say for a parent who's like, you're trying to acclimate the parent to the institution, you're trying to get a little feel of the culture or something like that, where it is, you know, it's something where you can just take it in instead of the real precise need of a, hey, click here to get to the application or the accepted student opportunity or something like that.
Yeah, definitely something that's a little bit more informational, where you're not trying to gather their information from it, you know, and you just want them to get the info and then continue navigating through the site. They're perfect for that.
Yep.
And I will also say, just kind of outside of just the popovers and the marketing automation, when you're looking at things like social advertising, videos are still a big thing because, you know, with a popover, they're already on your website. You're not trying to get them to your website.
Sure.
But then if you look at social advertising, you want them to get that little bit of a video and then be interested enough to navigate to your site. So it is a little bit different when you look at some different applications of the videos and in different media.
So we have a question here that's very interesting and one that we actually can't answer. We don't do photo shoots or video shoots, but if you're a VP out there, a director of admissions, and you, or even a director of marketing, or where you're thinking about your photo assets for this upcoming cycle, can you chime in and help us answer Brian's question? Does anyone have plans for doing video shoots? This is certainly a great question because I think we're at this moment of time that we're in right now. It's almost like we want to celebrate it and grab it as much as we can, the unique opportunity that it is. So, Brian, I think it's a great question. I'd love to hear what other people are thinking relative to that topic. And we have one other question related to video popovers before we move on to the next segment. So, can we have video popovers only on desktops, and are we able to disable them on mobile devices?
Laura, Hannah, do you one of you want to take this?
Yes. So we are actually able to set special parameters. So we can set it up to only serve on desktops, and then we could have a similar one that maybe is just like a screen grab from the video to serve on mobile. We can set it up to serve that way.
That's a great question, Tracy. Thanks for asking that one. And we can, if you have further questions on that topic, we can be reached probably, I think there's an email link that goes out at the end of our presentation with our info on it. But if you reach out to capture /contact, you'll get us. All right. Next segment here.
Hey, Jamie, about the face mask thing, I also want to know which what schools are have made their own face masks and
I was thinking that too.
In the bookstore giving them that orientation, because I, for one, would have loved to have one for my alma mater when I was going. If I was
that is a great idea. That is an awesome idea. There you go, folks. For those of you who are trying to figure out how to use your marketing budget, if you're not going to have as many view books because you're not traveling, that could be the way to use it.
That is a great idea. I would never have even thought about that, but I love that.
Thank you.
Well done.
All credit goes to Laura Hagen right there. All right, next segment, we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A time here. Again, as Jack said, we have 3 industry experts here who have done an immense amount of work on different campaigns for our company, for our partners. So we're going to ask one question. What is the most interesting or the most innovative piece of content that you have ever worked on for a partner? Laura.
I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. I was actually thinking of one that I unfortunately didn't get to do with one of my partners yet, but I really want to bring it in. I speak in GIFs pretty much. When I text people, when I on Teams, you all have been on the receiving end of that. So, you know, but I thought it was really cool. We did a GIF for a partner with text, and it was text bubbles kind of responding to different questions that the student had. And that performed really well for us. And it was kind of cool because it was just something different, broke up the text, and it was able to like show a different side of things and kind of modernized it a little bit more than the usual. That was, I think last year we did that. It was really fun.
That one was cool. I remember that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go next. So kind of like Laura, this isn't one that I actually got the opportunity to work on. So I can't take credit for it, but I thought it was a brilliant idea. A few months ago, we did a fee waiver email, and it was an interesting concept. You know, the email had very little actual content in it. It was very short, just a couple of sentences, but right in the middle was an animated GIF of a gift card. And it was really cool to me because, you know, when I get a gift card, I get really excited. I'm like, yes, free money, and I want to go spend it. And I think that gets really exciting for people who are receiving that email. So that, I think, was probably my favorite.
I remember that one. That one was really good.
Yeah, that one was really cool.
Yeah, I love that one. Mine isn't so much a particular piece of content, but approach to creating copy. We have a couple partners that are approaching it in a really refreshing and kind of bold way. We know that Gen Z is they're extremely aware that they're being marketed to. So I love a good pun. Actually, I love bad puns too. The bad humor really
Those are the best.
But this approach really cuts through sort of like some of the gimmicky language and some of the slogans, and is just really direct. And I think that's something that's really bold and really refreshing, and something that Gen Z appreciates. And I've seen those kinds of pieces performing really well.
Very good. We did get an answer. Laura Rudolph, who presented on Tuesday, did say that they are producing Transylvania specific face masks. So as always, Laura, like unbelievable. Well done. Way to be out in front there. Hopefully there'll be some others here who will jump on that bandwagon, which is America's favorite vehicle. All right. I think that the thunderstorm maybe got the best of Jack, and he might not be rejoining us. So I'm just going to take the helm here, and we're going to go to the next piece of best practice. The question is, the content that we're going to cover here is testimonials. And we all know what these are, right? Like, and I've personally always had a very big affinity to testimonials. I'm super into kind of, learning to love something through association. And I feel like testimonials do that. But I know that there's some opinions on testimonials, right? And we know some things that work well and what doesn't work well. So let's take a poll here of our audience. Which one works the best? They're going to pop up here real quick. There we go. What do we think performed the best? A toaster testimonial, a popover testimonial. Let me describe the difference there. A toaster, for those of you who are not Capture partners and potentially are less familiar with the kind of the nuances of our technology. So if you see down on your screen where the little Capture logo is, a toaster is often something kind of like a chat box that you're on, like on any website where it kind of pops up, gives a slight message. Hey, I'm here to help. I'm here to help you if you need me. Although the toaster isn't a person, usually in this case, it would be a testimonial. Whereas the popover would kind of jump into the space where the B circle is. It would kind of gray out the rest of the screen behind you. And then kind of take up and dominate the space. The difference between the two is that the toaster you have to X out of. The toaster goes away. The popover, sometimes you have to actually X out of. So if you've given your answer already, then thank you. If you haven't, there's still time. Let's talk about what has performed the best for us historically when it comes to student testimonials. Actually, testimonials in general. I'm not sure that they're always just students. The answer is, go ahead.
I would say, in the focus group that we did with the students, that this was one of the things we covered of who would you rather hear from, what would you respond better to, and overwhelmingly the students said they want to hear if it's program specific, they want to hear from somebody in the program, they want to hear from a professor from the program, a student about campus life, that kind of thing. So testimonials are always very helpful.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Here's where we see the best response. Can someone tell me here, like, what's the mechanism we're gauging for the success here? Is it, I'm assuming there's something to do with clicking into it and clicking into the content?
Right. Yeah. So we are looking at the clicks. So that would be for both of them. And this one is a little bit of a tricky answer because it's another one where it really depends on the situation. So while emails are an ideal way to share like longer and more general testimonials, we've also seen that dynamic content testimonials can perform well too. So for those that are on dynamic content, we try to make them more program specific because those tend to do better.
Okay. And let's just translate this out to another medium. So if you're not using dynamic content, if you're not a Capture partner, what are some other mechanisms for the use of testimonial? Could be something like
the carousels on a website, like if they have program specific pages or just on the homepage, that can be a really good place to highlight them.
Okay. So like you're talking about like in the banner, like display that kind of scroll through. Okay, perfect. All right.
Yeah, or even as you're scrolling down on a specific page, if you even just have a pull quote, that clicks into that story, that is also, I think, a really good way to introduce those testimonials.
Because again, testimonials are really powerful. So you want to be very intentional and selective about where you use them, but like we said, they can be extremely effective. Just pay attention to where you're using them and how you're using them to really leverage the power that they have.
Yeah, with the smaller options with the toasters and popovers, we have a little more limited landscape. So if this is going to be shown to a student that's not very familiar, you don't really want a more involved quote. We'll get kind of a longer one that we'll have to kind of trim down. So email is very good for kind of getting everything in there. But if it's a quick, really good quote about a certain program or why they love the school, that's doing really well on our popovers and posters.
Right.
Is there a length, is there optimal length, or is this kind of a subjective based on the institution, based on the funnel status that you're going after? Anything like that you have a general rule that you abide by?
If you want to go to the next slide, I believe we have.
Yeah, we have some examples.
See, this is what happens when Jack leaves. I mean, I just fall apart. That's really what's happening here. This is a live demonstration of what's. Oh, look at that! Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. There we have some very specific examples.
Yeah. So with popovers, we're able to include a lot more information along with imagery and more interesting design, just because it's a little bit bigger and it takes over more landscape of the page. So we're using a lot longer quotes in those. Toasters are a little bit smaller, so we try not to overwhelm the graphic with text. We use a pared down version of a quote or a quick snapshot of the student story, and often link directly to that student story where we need to.
Sure.
Right.
Well, great question just came in from the audience, wondering about the applicability. So do students or do we see prospects really resonating with graduates who maybe are a little bit beyond their age demographic or beyond their, is there some sort of link between program, or is the fact that they just share the institutional affinity, is that the common bond that makes it powerful?
I would say that it's similar to the general student testimonials, where it depends on what the student's already interested in. So program is a really good way to go because then it's sort of a testimony about ROI. So careers that you can go into.
Sure.
Or talking about how after you graduate, you have this great network of alumni that you can connect with. So it does depend a little bit. I think they can be effective. They're just not always as effective as student testimonials.
And I think for some alumni, sorry, Laura, I think for some alumni testimonials, it really depends on who that person is. If that person has this, really famous type of job, then no matter how long ago they graduated, I think it can still be powerful.
Yeah, a couple things on that. We did, for one of my partners, I know we did a testimonial toaster about a student that went on to work for the Green Bay Packers and had a picture of the student and Aaron Rodgers, and that did really well for us and for them. And then I know I keep going back to it, but the focus group was really helpful in this area because the students were saying besides affordability, the academics are the first things that they're looking
Sure.
for. So if it's their
Yep.
program, they're going to want to know what kind of jobs can I get, what opportunities do I have, and alumni being able to speak to that is very helpful.
Right.
Yeah. And that actually speaks to other results that we've seen in terms of click-through rates on emails and different things like that. Affordability is usually at the top. Academics usually right there below it, not far below it. And I think depending on the institution or the demographic, then we see different results, kind of one way or the other from one or two. All right, we are. Oh, here's another example of a
Oh yeah, these
different
are email
Yep,
examples.
email testimonials and how those have been used. Sorry, folks. I feel like I'm a PowerPoint failure right now when it comes to flipping through these slides. I'm doing my best. Thanks
You're
for your
doing great.
Thanks for your grace. All right, final question before we get to the next Q&A about you four. Email images. Okay. Email images are important, right? We want to make sure that we have emails that are not only relevant and the right length, but we also want to capture the right kind of the look and feel, the format. So what has performed better? And I think this is an interesting one too, because, the use of GIFs, I know you said, Laura, that your life is really just one extended GIF after another. So that's which if I think about that, I think is very funny to think about. But I think the use of GIF, as we have seen it, I know that my kids, send me GIFs all the time. And I feel like when I look at their messages between their friends, it's like one GIF after another, just like, it's like a GIF off. Is that a thing? That must be a thing. But I think the use of these kind of animated images, I always find it to be very fun, right? I think it's great. So the question really becomes, which one did we think, or which one did we see? Not only did we think, which one did we see perform the best? And pretty soon the answer is, Peter's getting in early with the answer. Thanks for chiming in, Peter. Any of you others have a response to this one? Look at this. We got a bunch of right people here. They're correct. You are correct. All those who answered A, you are right. You get the satisfaction of knowing that you are correct. So who wants to explain this one?
I'll take this one. So this actually, sorry guys, it's a little bit of a trick question. So, we haven't really seen a huge difference in click-through rates when it comes to static versus animated images, particularly in header images. But, I give static images the edge on this just a little bit for a couple of reasons that are completely outside of click rates. One of them being,
got me curious, Sarah.
Yeah. So one of them being, a lot of times when you're creating animated GIFs, the file sizes end up getting a little bit larger.
Sure.
And then that makes it a little bit harder for downloading for the recipient. If they're on a lower internet connection, it might take them a little while and they may not be super into it. So you have to think about the file size. And then the other thing is to keep those file sizes lower. It can be hard to do with keeping the quality high of the image. So, taking those things into consideration, static images do have an edge here. That being said, there's always a caveat, and rules are made to be broken sometimes. That if there is a time where you have something and you're like, an animated GIF would really make this content pop, then you should absolutely use it. This is never to say that you should avoid animated images. Just know that there are some caveats with those animated images.
Right, and it's one of those things where you can overuse them and it sort of just becomes the normal, but if you don't usually use them and then you do, it becomes really impactful.
So what you're saying is, like my 401k portfolio, we should have a little diversification when it comes to the emails that we're sending out.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
There we go. I mean, so I'm channeling Kevin Bauman right there and talking about financial stuff, because that's kind of what he always goes back to when we're recording the buzz. All right, last question. Enrollment management and higher ed we live in a world of innovation, right? We live in a world where things are changing. And I think if I think back on the 15 years that I've been involved in higher ed, one of the things that sticks out the most for me is the differences in mediums and technology and the evolution and morphing that has happened along the way. It's been spectacular. It's fun to watch. It's scary to operate in. It leaves never a dull moment for anyone who's in this crazy field. Like this, the truth is, this is something that is constantly something that we need to be in front of. So the question to you, as 4 professionals who work in this day in and day out, is what do you think could be the next big thing in outreach and communications to prospects?
Who wants to go first?
Cue Jeopardy tune.
I'll go. So I think what we're going to see is a lot of integration between existing technologies. Like, for example, a prospective student will get an email telling them to go check their physical mailbox, and then they'll check it and they'll find like a mailer or something, just to make it a really seamless approach where everything works together. And so I don't really have any specific like new technology, but I think how technologies work together is going to change.
And I actually know, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I actually have a colleague or a counterpart, someone I know who works in the mail industry, and there are actually these mechanisms. And again, this is maybe, I think this is the cool thing, because I don't know much about it, but it's like, there are actually mechanisms now, kind of like your Amazon delivery, where you can actually track your direct mail and figure out when it's delivered, and then cue that message that you were talking about, Hannah. I think that could be, I love that. I mean, I still love getting mail too. So
me too.
Real mail, not just the bills and stuff.
Yeah. Do they still call it snail mail, or is that an old term?
Yeah, snail mail. There you go. USPS, whatever.
Yeah,
exactly. From my end, just what I'm kind of seeing in the digital space is where it's at. I think it's so many students are on all of these different apps and sharing streaming services, and that's the way to get in front of them. So just any other way we can do that and work with that with our existing offerings is going to be great.
Yeah, and so the one that I'm thinking of, it kind of piggybacks on what Hannah was saying with different technologies. So what I'm thinking is one of the next big things is going to be augmented or virtual reality. I know we referenced this in a webinar that we did several months ago, but these technologies, AR and VR, are becoming a lot more popular, especially in higher ed. And, it's a mix of different phone apps and some mailers where you can kind of create that virtual reality pretty easily, actually, at this point. And especially right now with the pandemic, having that available for virtual tours and things like that, I think can be really powerful.
That's a very, I actually, funny you say that, because I used to, when I was an account executive, I used to work with Brad Camilleri at Biola. And I remember one of the first times I went on campus, he was opening a package of something that they had just got for their admitted students. And it was actually a pair of like foldable glasses that you could stick your phone down in.
Yeah.
And then depending on the angle that you turned your head, it would like take you around campus. So that,
exactly.
In this period that we're in right now, that is like a phenomenal tool where you can actually personalize that communication. I actually think maybe every student had an individual URL, so there was some personalization within that. So I'll give props to Brad there for, he's just a guy who's ahead of his time. He's just an amazing thinker. So here's the summary, everyone. I think we're nearing the end of our time. I want to say that it was we had a 2:30 ending time. Can everyone nod if I'm correct or incorrect there? I think that we're right there. And I just want to say, my heart goes out to Jack. We've missed having him here. He's a fun person to talk with, and I'm sure that he will have some comments about his internet connectivity once we get him back online. But here's the summary. Your institution's name, we want to make sure that what's going out from your institution is powerful. And the way that is most powerful is for them to get past the inbox. So make sure that you're paying attention. Use pick the right sender for the right section of the funnel. I think that, like Jack said, there is a lot of diversification and variation depending on the geography and the type of institution you are. But there's also this, this period of time where we have to think about different components of the funnel, right? Like what makes sense for this student at the very top of the funnel, or maybe a sophomore, might not make sense for your accepted student or your deposited student. So I think using the assets that are available, and also getting at, like everything says these days, and like we have seen through our engagements online, personalization, personalization, personalization. So pay attention to your users and make sure that you're giving them the appropriate person. Web interactions, we want to make sure that we have fewer distractions. So that's where the static image won the race in that one. And then testimonials are great. We also know that was a little bit of a trick question. So there's a few trick questions. Actually, I think maybe all of these were trick questions. We really want to get down to it. So one thing, never trust the operations team when you work with them, because it's all a bunch of trick questions is the takeaway.
Yeah.
Testimonials, like I said, one of the things I actually ended up going to the college that I went to because of a piece of stock photography. But the reason I liked the photography was because it was a rock climber. And at the time, I was really into rock climbing. So that was the thing that actually ended up landing me at the school that I graduated from, was that piece of stock photography. So that association, whether it's through stock photography or testimonials or geography or things like that, those are key components to that personalization process. And I think sometimes maybe we think personalization is all about like, making sure that you're talking about the person's major or their name and all that, which are important, but like there are other ways to personalize geographically and things like that. And then lastly, animated images. We can use them sparingly. I think the real takeaway was mix it up like you do your 401k portfolio, and really make sure that you're punching up your content, especially in a time that we're in like right now. The digital the copy that we're sending out is critical to get engagement. And we all know, with the potential diminished funnel that we all have out there because of search limitations, travel and visit limitations, this summer is going to be different. So it's going to be the onus is on us to make sure that we're notching that creative element up to where it needs to be for this coming cycle. Anything I'm missing, ladies?
No, you got it.
Yeah, well, and I just want to add one real quick thing, because I know that we did talk about everything being kind of a trick question.
Yeah.
And it goes to that last point on that summary. Best practices aren't always the best 100% of the time.
Sure.
So, be creative, try a few new things. That's how we found out a lot of these things, is just by experimenting and trying a few different creative ideas. So, start with the best practice, but if you have another idea, go for it.
Yeah. And I would say this, let us just throw this out there to the audience, right? If you're a partner and you're listening in right now and you have this like burning idea, which I'm pretty sure that most of the Capture team is happy that I'm not an account executive anymore because of these burning ideas that I had in my head sometimes. If you have an idea that you want to experiment on, one of the things that we love doing is understanding more what works. Like, you are the creative fuel that drives us. So help us by giving that answer, putting it in the live comments right now, talking to your account executive. And I'll say this too, if you're not a Capture partner and you are interested in seeing us test something, throw that out there, because we're also interested in that. We would love to give you feedback and some insight. If we may have already done something, and we obviously did not publish all of our A/B tests, otherwise we'd be here until like December. But this is what we love to do. We love to make your performance sing. So I think with that, there we go. There they are.
Hey guys.
Fearless leaders.
Thank you so much for all of that amazing information that you guys shared, what you have seen in the mass of interventions, right? And the trends that you're picking up, phenomenal. Sarah, I thought your point at the end was fantastic. Thanks so much for all that you're bringing to the table, what you're doing for our partners, and for the insights for the attendees today.
Well, thanks for having
us on here.
Absolutely. Well, then, we're coming to the end.
We are.
We have 2 more giveaways, and these are pretty exciting. So let's go to the first one, shall we?
We shall.
So we have a 1-year all-access membership to Masterclass for one lucky attendee. We will match that with a donation of $180 to Boys and Girls Club of American Urban League. So let's drum roll it out and see. Here we go. Melody F. from Washington, congratulations and enjoy that 1-year membership to Masterclass, and we will donate on your behalf to the organizations that we've been talking about for the last 2 days. Okay, here comes the last one. There have been some really great prizes that we've shared with folks, great donations made. Our last one is a scholarship donation to the institution of this particular attendee. So a $750 scholarship donation goes to, roll the drum, Colleen M. from North Carolina. So for both of our drawing winners, once again, we will be in touch after the conference to facilitate the logistics of getting you the winning prize. Len, I'm gonna turn it over to you to close.
Thank you so much, Heather. Again, thank you to the panelists for today. I want to close with some very important thoughts. Innovate is about action. In the past 2 days, we've talked about actions that we can take to create educational opportunities for our students. But there's one bigger action that all of us as education leaders and participants of today's session must take. And you must join us here at Capture to take a stand for racial equality. There is no place in this society or across these panelists or participants. We must stand for racial equality, and we must stand for actions that are sustainable. Join me, the people I Capture, our clients, and taking sustainable action. All of you have the power to support my Black, brown, and brown sisterin today, now, and in the long term. And here are some critical examples when you can do it. Give your employees PTO for civic opportunity so they can be engaged in those causes that are important to them. Support your National Urban League, the United Negro College Fund, or that organization that represents your community about racial equality and social justice. Be a beacon of opportunity with internships for your local colleges. Be there every step of the way. And if you don't know how to be a beacon of racial justice and social justice, then reach out to us here at Capture, reach out to a peer, reach out to your National Urban League. Today, I thought it was important to close with something that impacted me. We as a nation have been moved. We as a nation have been reminded of the pains that large percentages of our population have experienced for hundreds of years. And we as a nation and as educators must come together to support our nation's Black and brown community every day for racial equality and social justice. We are closing our conference with a powerful statement. A moment of silence for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That is the time a Minneapolis police officer had his knee on George Floyd's neck. We're going to take that moment of silence as a stand in unity together, that may every day we demonstrate actions of racial equality and social justice. Thank you for joining me and the Capture community, and thank you for being beacons of opportunity. This concludes Innovate USA.